And we are back on the chosen baseball journey. This is magical episode number 120. We made it to 120 chapters. Jonathan A. Cohen, Bible 3.0 author, here with former MLB slugger. Oh, he's got the book with him. Look at Kareem Garcia, MLB slugger. Kareem, how are you enjoying reading the Bible 3.0 so far?
So far as getting me a better person. I'm trying to be a better person, and you helped me very much. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's all about, at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's building. I am a person of routine, and many
Mhm.
people fight routine, but I tell them when you make routines and you keep with it, life is so much simpler. You're going to get much better results. You're not going to have to think about as much. You'll have better effort. I mean, you think about your baseball career spanning 2 decades or so. Would you have made it that far in baseball without routine?
Not at all. You have to have one.
Very, very important life. In today's chapter, we're going to be talking about the MLB All-Star Game. We made it up to the 94th edition, almost at 100 years now. And just to mention, as we're doing today's taping, it's funny, you live in the United States in Texas. I'm in Ontario, Canada. And your side of the border, you're talking about elections and assassination attempts. You know what the biggest issue in Canada right now is, Kareem?
No, what is it?
You ready for this one?
Uh,
So, the United States makes new rules on bringing dogs across the border into the United States. Okay. So, like me, I have my dog, I have my Shih Tzu, love my dog. Every time I take a road trip, I got to bring the dog with me. I want to bring the dog with me. I don't want to be without her. And so, there's a whole bunch of criteria on bringing the dogs across the border. Canada gets very upset because they tell the United States, you didn't tell us ahead of time. We didn't get a chance to negotiate this. And I don't know if we can meet this criteria. So, as of this taping, believe it or not, this is where our tax dollars are going towards. US, Canada officials meeting in Washington to negotiate a one-page document on bringing dogs across the border because truckers tend to bring their dogs with them for companionship, and it's not very fair to the dogs. Plus, if I have the paperwork, how will the border guard know if I have this Maltese or not unless they're able to scan the dog? So, this dog issue is running wild in Canada. Are you surprised?
Not too many things surprise me, but I can't believe that you guys spending the money and talking about this bill, trying to pass this bill for the dogs. They never had an issue in the past by bringing your dog, your friend, to the States. I always do it because I take my dogs to the vet, but I take them across the border in Mexico, which is a lot cheaper than the United States. So I do it all the time. So I imagine that they ask me every time that I go back and forth, which is a lot of times, for papers for my dogs.
The criteria, it's funny. It's across obviously different countries, but they say Canada is very low risk. You have to make sure your dog has rabies, microchip, at least 6 months old. You have to get the vet to sign one piece of paper, but then you need another vet approved by the government. And so that's the issue. And I say to myself, Lord, we have so many issues. We have inflation and we have interest rates and we have housing and hospitals to deal with. Do we really need to fight about whether to bring dogs across the border? So I'm going to be heading to SummerSlam and watching wrestling in Cleveland. Plus, I'm going to watch the Guardians against the Orioles. God willing, my doggy will be at the Airbnb with me, and I'll make it with her to cross the border in August. But welcome to Canada, my friend. Now, speaking of Canada, Canada was very highly touted in this All-Star game, this past edition. Found it very interesting. So we were talking off air. You got to watch the whole All-Star game, watched quite a bit of the home run derby as I did. Uh, First of all, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. wearing the Teoscar Hernandez jersey. What did you think of that one?
That was hilarious. I mean, they're countrymen, and they helped each other. He was rooting for him the whole time. So doing that is only shows how great as a person Vladimir Jr. is.
Do you think in your mind, because here's what I'm thinking in my mind, it's a little bit of a shot to Blue Jay management saying, This guy's in the home run derby. By the way, he won the home run derby. You traded him for a reliever that has now been in the minors almost all year because he imploded. And all this guy doing is supporting Otani and Freeman in the lineup for a team that needs a lot of offense. Teoscar would have looked very good in the Blue Jays lineup this year. Would he have not have?
It would have looked great. It would have looked fantastic. Unfortunately, sometimes it's one of those deals that you make that you think that you're going to get the better part, and the Dodgers actually got the better part of it because nobody was thinking that Teoscar was going to have 19 home runs by the All-Star game, hitting 280 with 65 RBIs, something like that. He's putting some monster numbers that's going to probably hit around more than 30 home runs, more than 100 RBIs. Those type of numbers are, the guys that are going to get paid soon.
And he's a guy, look, I was not surprised, as you probably were not either, when he got traded originally to the Mariners from the Jays, going to play at Safeco in that lineup, in that ballpark. Numbers didn't look so outstanding. He had a good year at the end, not a great year, but pretty good year. But getting out of Seattle as soon as possible, Dodger Stadium is not known as the best hitter's ballpark on the planet, as you and I have discussed it on the
Yeah.
air. But with that protection in that lineup, you have Will Smith and you have Otani and you have Freeman and you have all these guys with you. Rather than getting a 3-4 year deal, which is what people project him to get, Teoscar said, I'll go to LA, I'll play with Otani, I'll bet on myself, I'll take my 21, 25 mil. I think Teoscar made a very good bet.
Was a very smart guy. Plus, if he likes the chemistry that they have on that team right now, he's going to be the type of guy as Max Munch. He's going to get the 2 year deals, the $40 million, 45, but he's happy to be with the Dodgers because he knows that he's going to be on the playoff every single year. They always have a very good team, competitive team. They're always going to be in the postseason. Are they going to make it to the World Series? That's a different thing, but they are going to make it to the postseason. And that's what you look for every year. Have an opportunity first to make it to the postseason and then go to the World Series.
And I have some points for you at random. So just note, as my mind tends to work, we're going to bounce here, there, everywhere. So first of all, at the end of this year, assuming the trade deadline goes and the Blue Jays liquidate their team and get replenish that farm system, they better be trading about 5 players and get about 30 prospects back right now. But when it comes to the end of the year, if I'm Mike Shapiro's boss over at Rogers, the conglomerate, and I sit down with him and with Ross Atkins, and I say, listen, gents, so you go and you decide you're going to up this team as far as better defense goes. And so what did you go and do? You traded away Moreno and Gurriel. What did they do? They went to Arizona and only made it to the World Series. You moved Teoscar for this reliever, Swanson, who has been in the minors almost all year, imploded. And all Teoscar's doing is winning the home run derby and providing protection for the rest of the Dodgers. For a team that had very little, I mean, really what did in the Jays this year, again, was a lack of offense. Let's be honest. They have very good starting pitching. The envy of MLB, Kikuchi and Gosman and Berrios, Bassett, everybody is calling up the Jays and saying, can I have a starting pitcher and a starting pitcher and a starting pitcher? For such a shortage of starting pitchers, the Jays have a really overflow. And those 3 bats I mentioned, you put those 3 bats in a lineup over the last couple of years. This is a case where you can literally look at a team and say, you have a lineup 1 till 9. You took 3 key parts out of this lineup. I think the Jays maybe are making the playoffs this year if Teoscar, Gurriel, Moreno are still on that team.
They have a great opportunity, but you got to remember the part is they're playing in the toughest division of the American League, the American League West. What you have the Yankees, Baltimore, Boston, Toronto is the 4th one, and Tampa is the 5th one. But mentioning the first three teams, which is Boston is playing incredible right now with young kids. Baltimore is doing his own thing and is in first place by 1 game over the Yankees. And the Yankees are stuck in pitching and in hitting. They are going to get people is going to get hurt. But the Jays, to compete at that level, with all respect, is you have to put up a lot of money. A lot of money. And I'm talking no millions, maybe $1 billion to bring some hitters, because like you mentioned, you had the pitching, but you're gonna need some offense in there. You're gonna need some good hitters. You need Vladimir Guerrero to be protected if you don't trade him by the deadline. You're gonna have some other guys that start, stepping up. That they're still waiting for them to wake up and they haven't hit. But again, you're gonna have to put up money.
Look, I'm embarrassed to say this even, but I remember at the time when the Juan Soto sweepstakes were happening in the offseason, the Jays are so bare in the farm system, unfortunately. When you got your team through trades over the years, you don't draft very well. You get a lot of injured players. You got Tiedemann and a couple guys basically at this point. I don't think I said, I don't think they have the goods to give to the Padres what they need to get Juan Soto. And Yankees miraculously find a way every single time. You take a Juan Soto and you put him from the start of the year in that Jays lineup, we're getting there. Juan Soto,
No,
big difference.
you're going to make a difference, because the guy not only brings the power, he brings the patience to the plate all the time. He has a lot of walks. His OBP is over 400. And then if you hit 300 and your OBP is over 400, every two at bats, every 2 out of 4 at bats, you're getting on base. So you're producing not only runs, but you're actually scoring runs for your team, and you're putting pressure on the defense of the other team, which is what you're looking for in any player.
And you knew he was going to find a way to get on base. He was going to get Judge that at bat. He wanted Judge to face Skeens, and by hook or by crook, he did it. I thought he got hit. To be honest, I thought he actually hit by pitch there, but he found a way to get that walk in. That is why,
I tell you what,
yeah.
that pitch, it was a strike. If you see it from the angle, I mean, from TV, it looks pretty good. The problem was that the catcher had to go in to get the pitch because he wasn't thinking that the ball was going to move that much. It was a 100-mile-per-hour fastball on an inside corner. So the catcher had to go to his right, and that's why he looked awkward. But if you see in the little thing that they put right there, that was a strike. That was a right on the corner. But again, the catcher didn't sell it very well, and he ended up getting the walk, and then Judge got that bat, like you mentioned.
But unfortunately, he bounced in one pitch. Now, randomly gonna ask you. So we got the 94th edition. I've been at two All-Star games in my life. I was at the one in Pittsburgh. I'd like to say that one was in 2004, 2005, if I'm not mistaken. I was also at the 91 Toronto All-Star game. Compared to the four major leagues, NFL, we're gonna say their Pro Bowl biggest joke probably out of all the All-Star games, where it's such an afterthought already. There's no way with the grind of an NFL season you could do it mid-season. You just cannot. And by the end of the season, none of the starters would want to risk their careers, and you still have injuries in the Pro Bowl. So I'll put the Pro Bowl as the worst, least watched, least cared about All-Star game out of all the sports. Then you have the MLB, sorry, you have the NBA, where let's say it's typically 160 to 158 the score. There's no defense whatsoever, right? And then you have the NHL All-Star game, which NHL, half the people in the United States, if you ask them what the NHL stands for, they probably have no idea. So by default, in reality, I know there's been quirks, Kareem. I know they've gone through different, like those jerseys this year were ugly as sin. I don't know what you think, but I thought they were embarrassingly ugly. Like, who picked those colors? Like, seriously, like rainbow bright. Like, what did you do here? Like, you had like a 5-year-old with their pastel crayons color these jerseys. Terrible. But aside from the jerseys aspect of it, and the game counting towards a home advantage for the World Series, whatever incarnations they made of this All-Star game, I still believe in my heart the MLB All-Star game is the best All-Star game in sports, period. Thoughts?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Like you mentioned, the other four major sports besides MLB, they don't put the attention on the adrenaline of the game that's as the major leagues, and this is midsummer All-Star when the other teams is difficult for them because you mentioned you can get hurt. These guys over here can get hurt too, and they have been hurt before. and it put a lot of stress into the teams. But again, the All-Star for the major leagues to me is for the fans, but also for the players. They enjoy it a lot, and you playing for something actually. Before you were playing for home advantage in the World Series. Now the home run derby. Before that was more for the fans. Now the player, if you win, you get $1 million. Teoscar got $1 million, and the other guy Gunner got $750,000. Imagine that. Never before you see those type of numbers of money, give them away to the players. When before it was cars or maybe a small check or I don't know something else. Now you play for something. Now you really gotta burn down. You gotta put attention, and you gotta concentrate. That's what these guys nowadays. Not only because they make the money, but they actually go and not only have fun but work into the All-Star game and try to win it.
Well, I could tell you when I found out Teoscar was going to be in the home run derby, and he's been a catalyst in my one of my fantasy baseball teams. I said to myself, I'm in trouble now because that means he's going to have two home runs the rest of the year, like that home run derby curse. So somehow Rooker from Oakland was still available, so I picked him up. He's been a beast for them, and the hot rumor, and he wasn't an all-star. I have no idea Rooker with his stats. He has better stats than Teoscar if you go look him up, and shockingly, he's not an all-star, but hot rumor is he's off to Philadelphia. The Philadelphia is really sniffing around him. You take that bat into that lineup more. I'm still liking Philadelphia's chances for the World Series this year.
They're looking good. I'm still rooting for the Jays. They're gonna make it all the way to the World Series, hopefully.
And I'm still rooting for the Tooth Fairy and the and Santa Claus to come to my house. Now, all time, this is shocking. I went to go back and look at this because it feels like the AL wins every single All-Star game, right? Pretty much. The all-time record is 48, 44, and 2. It's almost even. But why did I think it was only the AL? Because the AL in the last 11 has a 10-1 record, and over the last almost 30 or so, 22-4. The AL is demolishing the NL almost every single year. Why does the AL is this now like the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Bills? Is this now a mental thing with the National League? Like the National League is just as stacked as the AL from a talent perspective. These leagues don't mean anything anymore. Like, let's be honest, it's so
Mhm.
interchangeable, free agency and trades and everything else. Why is the AL winning every single year the All-Star game?
Well, it's a very good question. I asked myself the same one. Last year, the National League won after 10 years without winning one. And now this year, they went on top again, 3-0 with the home run of Otani. And all of a sudden, they comes the bottom of the fourth, and they score 3 runs. They give up 3 runs with all-star pitchers, with guys throwing 100, 98, 97, and he's just serving up on a walk, a base hit here and there. Lack of concentration, maybe, or I don't know, because you put in a lot of things into the game.
I was pretty shocked. Under 3 hours. Like I
Yeah,
know that it's pretty good. I know they're trying to speed up the game, but on that token, with all those hitters, I expected 12-10, 9-8, 5-3. Kareem, have the pitchers overtaken the hitters finally? Because up and down in baseball, it seems like there's a lot stronger pitching than hitting. Is it just me?
no, it is. It is. Now, guys, nowadays they're throwing over 100 miles. The closer for the Oakland A's, the only guy that went from Oakland, he came on the fifth inning or the sixth, I can't remember right now, but he's throwing 104, 103. I mean, he's making look silly those hitters. He throws fastball, and a little slider, 89. I mean, it looked ridiculous the swings that they took to him. I mean, and you bring in now closers from the fifth, sixth inning, you make the game faster. Now, the American League got 5 runs on 5 hits. The National League got 3 runs on 7 hits and 1 error. So no, I'm sorry. The American League made the error, not the National League. The American League made the error. But there was only, if you put it combined, it's 12 hits total for both teams. stacked with guys that are hitting 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, you know, good hitters like the leadoff hitter for the All-Star, which is the Quan for the Cleveland Guardians, is hitting 350. And they're swinging at the first pitch. Some of these guys, they're not even patient. The only guy that was patient was Soto. They got a walk.
It seems these days when you look up and down MLB lineups, there's a lot of 250 hitters that are striking out quite a bit, not taking a ton of walks, and there's quite a few pitchers who are doing pretty well out there. And but it's funny because every you and I when we message each other on a daily basis almost there's always a new pitcher who's gonna have Tommy John or some sort of Tommy John type operation. So the pitchers are falling like flies, but while they're on, they are pitching really, really well. And the All-Star game tells me, and I watched that All-Star game and looking at the final results, I think at this point of the year and at this point in the MLB, the pitching is ahead of the hitting.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's gonna be for years to come the same thing. Major League wanted games to be faster. Well, now they're faster, but they're also getting a lot of people injured on the process. Because they're trying to speed things, and you should take your time to do so. Nowadays you have the little on your hat that you tell them what kind of signs are you gonna throw, stuff like that. The catcher telling you. It changed the dynamic of the game, which I enjoy seeing the catcher put a sign down and you on first base or second base trying to steal the sign so that way you can go to second or still third. You take a lot of those things out of the equation and the fun of the game, which they put you more alert. And nowadays it's more robotic, more do this, do that, 1, 2, 3, and that's it, to me.
I have a comment, which it's funny, you're reading my mind a little bit, and a point that I wanted to bring up because you mentioned how the All-Star game for the fans, more fan friendly, for the players. I have an argument though.
Okay.
Who is the All-Star game really for? Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I would tell you, having been to the Pittsburgh one years ago, and I don't think it's been much different. It's for the sponsors. I feel like MLB takes a lot of money from a lot of sponsors. And you think about who gets those tickets and all the branding everywhere and the parties they throw. They have the after party after the home run derby day, before the All-Star game day. And to me, MLB at the end of the day, when they're putting this together, it's a great event, first class. But the first people they're thinking in mind, because same thing, why did they speed up the game? Why are they doing all these changes? Sponsors, advertising, money. That's what talks.
Yeah, almost TV. TV wants you to finish under 3 hours so they can put another program in for them, because time is money for them. And this is what MLB is doing right now, but they're not thinking about the players that they can actually getting hurt because they are getting hurt. And it's more pitchers than anything else because they're getting hurt. So they're going to have to put a little stop or do something different for next year because you cannot have, I don't know, 60 people already injured through the year, and most of them are Tommy Johns. So you lose 18 months. You don't lose a year. You lose 18 months at least to recover. So these guys are losing a year and a half.
I gotta ask you, as an MLB player, back in the day, when when people would find out that they were named to the All-Star team, how hard do you think it is for the players to show excitement when they know that there's between 22, sometimes to 24 other guys in that locker room that didn't make it, and some were just or maybe more deserving? Is that a hard process for a player's mind to celebrate with your teammates, but also bring recognition that most of your teammates haven't made it and may never make it to an All-Star game?
I think that the players understand very well that whoever goes to the All-Star game is because they deserve it. They're doing for the first half of the year what they're supposed to be doing, helping the team win games, putting the numbers that you're supposed to, not only on the self perspective, but for the team also, and the major leagues had to bring one player from each team no matter what. So, I mean, you're not maybe doing the best, but you might be doing the best for your team, and that's the one that they pick. When I play with Detroit, they only pick one guy. Why? Because we're in last place. We're not winning a lot of games. The team wasn't doing so well, but this guy was doing decent enough to make it to the All-Star. And you congratulate him for that. I mean, you're happy for the person that goes to the All-Star. It doesn't really matter. The guy is not going to be jumping up and down, celebrating in front of you, but you're happy for the person that goes to the All-Star.
Who made it that year for Detroit? Do you remember?
I want to say it was Dean Palmer. It's either Dean Palmer or Tony Clark, one of those two.
Funny, I remember Tony Clark, that power hitting first baseman, not the bearded union leader that's having some issues out there. So
Yes.
we remember you fondly, Tony Clark. So as we end today's episode, I gotta ask you. So you played in, as I recall, both in Mexico and Korea in the All-Star games, correct?
Yes.
I remember from our first interview, probably now, I'd like to say 15 years ago at least. And we
Yeah.
were, or it was one of the questions we talked about. Your favorite all-time All-Star game that you participated in?
I think it was difficult because you enjoy all of them. But the one in 2007, I win the home run derby that year, and I have my whole family. I have my wife, my mom, my dad is still alive at that time. I invite him to Veracruz, Mexico, to do the All-Star game over there, and I win the derby. We win the game, the whole 9 yards. It was probably the best for me. Enjoy it because of my family and the things that I got to do in there.
How enjoyable was it for you to sit at your TV and watch Duran win the MVP this year and see the performance, what he put on, considering, he took him time to find his footing. Many considered him, a failed prospect. And this year he's really come on a house on fire, made it to the All-Star team, hit a game-winning home run with the runs that he was able to produce, and wins the MVP award. What was your feeling on Duran winning all of this?
I was so happy for him. And he started from the WBC that he participated with Mexico and helped him to get all the way to the semifinals. I mean, this guy was like a grinder. He's trying to well, he find himself now, like you mentioned it, because he's doing great with Boston. He's hitting, and that's why he made it to the All-Star. And now hitting the two-run shot to win the game or put the game ahead at that time of the American League, and at the end winning the MVP. I was so happy for him, not only because he's Mexican, because he's a guy that is working hard to be where he is now.
And so if Rob Manfred called you up and said, Kareem, you never shy to give your opinion. I'm thinking about next year's All-Star game already, the 95th edition. If you could give me one change to the All-Star game to make the All-Star game better, what would you do?
What would I do? That's a good question. I mean, the game, like you mentioned, it was 2 hours and 36 minutes, 2 hours and 40 minutes, something like that. So, uh, you know what? I will take the mics off the guys when they're talking during the at bats, because they distract them all the time. So that thing to me, I don't like it. I know it's for the fans, like you mentioned it, for the sponsors. That thing, I don't like it a lot. Other than that, I mean, the game still kind of play the same. So it was a little more weaker this year, but I wouldn't change too many things on that.
Well, I like the idea of going back to where you wear your actual home jerseys, you wear your team jerseys. I none more of this horrible All-Star game jerseys. I think I would definitely go that route, or make your jerseys, but some kind of patching more so you can identify which team the person's on. But they got to work on the jersey aspect of it. And this is the one rare change to the game that went back that I kind of like the home field advantage, I really thought that gave the All-Star game a big edge, and they really had something to play for. And so I would actually consider going back to that. It won't, but I would go back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine the American League, whoever wins the American League, it takes home advantage. If the Yankees go or on not on Baltimore or whoever Cleveland makes it, starting at home is a big difference. It's a huge difference that they're going on the road and playing 2-3-2. So to me, that's a pretty good advantage, and I think they should bring it back. And again, you're right. The jerseys, they were horrible this year. I didn't like them. I like more the idea of each player having their own team jersey. When you're playing. because that's extinction, not a little letter on the side for the team that you play that you couldn't see it very, very well. So yeah, I like the jerseys.
Have you ever had a conversation with Torey Lovello, the Diamondbacks manager?
No.
I was curious if you ever met him in real life, but I gotta say, listening to him on MLB radio, first time All-Star game, managing the National League side, a baseball lifer that devoted his career to managing and working his way up. It was very humbling and very, respectful to hear how gracious he was about it. People think about the players all the time and, how many All-Star games they've attended. And, you got Anderson from the Angels that's been twice now, still hasn't gotten to a game. But when a manager makes it, it's pretty cool for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got the honor because you make it to the World Series. That's how you get the honor. And they never thought that he was going to make that. I mean, nobody bet on the Diamondbacks to make it to the World Series. They made it. And all the coaches that never had the opportunity, some of them maybe not even play the major leagues, to be as a coach on the All-Star game with all those guys, it's incredible. It's just humbling for anyone.
Imagine how much you learn in that dugout, talking to those guys and watching their habits. And I'm sure the pitchers talk to the pitchers and the hitters talk to the hitters. You pick up one little piece of something, it can be career changing. So a couple of the guys I was reading their thoughts on the game, they were saying there's one guy I'm gonna pick his brain. It's Juan Soto. He seems to be the popular guy, and that's why he's gonna be making 700 mil or so when it comes to the offseason. That's it for today. We'll be back next week. Kareem and I will be looking into the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think they're still called the Pirates. I think that's still correct. And the big phenom, we didn't mention him about the All-Star game. We're going to give him a whole chapter. That's Paul Skeens. We'll be back next week. That's a Chosen Baseball Journey podcast.